The following podcast contains opinions from paid professionals. The information provided in this podcast is general in nature and not advice. For free and confidential support, call 1800 858 858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
But in Sydney, we get to look forward to the Spring Champion Stakes.
Yes, and I think it's a race in three. That's how the market has it pegged anyway. So for the 3-year-olds over the 2,000 metres, Group 1 set weights, El Costello, Swift Falcon and Hen Lane are top three in the market, all drawn wildly different gates, got wildly different patterns, but they all come out of the same race last start in the gloaming. Two of them went to the Dulcifer. Oh, no, one of them went to the Dulcifer. Yeah, just one of them went to the Dulcifer in Swift Falcon. Of course, he won that. I mean, before the gloaming, El Costello was winning midways for fun.
Yeah.
It's been an awesome prep from him.
It has, and I was smitten with the win. I was keen on the day, and geez, what a win it was. So map-wise, you raise a good point. So El Costello, when you first look at the barrier, you go, oh,
8.
Suddenly the tables may be turned towards, say, a Swift Falcon. But then Swift Falcon's drawn poorly. And the difference is Swift Falcon will have to go back. El Costello has positional speed. Maybe not to lead, but when you look at the speed underneath, there's not a heap. I think there's one horse that may punch up underneath, so that would leave them probably, I think that's Rag Queen. So Rag Queen punches up, they may sit outside, and then the speed comes from outside them, Noises and co come across. Worst case scenario, you're outside the leader. I reckon they end up 1-1.
You think 1-1?
Yeah, because the two speed horses are from outside, so they both come across. As long as you can cross everything except Rag Queen, you either end up taking the lead and handing up, or you end up outside Rag Queen with those two coming across. So I'd say worst case scenario, you're third without cover but one off. And that's where it's interesting with gates. You know, gates are only really detrimental if you don't have the positional speed to have an option. So the other big winner out of it was Henline, who'll probably be
Three back
fence. So you've got positional advantage on both of your main rivals. Swift Falcon might need to give them 3. And I just think El Costello could do the same thing. Swift Falcon was closing the gap, but it was still a decent gap at the end of that last race.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the market's wrong.
You think Swift Falcon should be favourite?
I think Swift Falcon is favourite. I think either Henline or El Costello should be favourite. Probably Henline drawn 1.
You think he should be favourite? I mean, he hasn't won a race this prep, but he's been hitting the line stylishly.
Well, and he was favourite up until last start.
Yeah. He was really good.
There's not much between a couple of them, so it's probably
with
not much
Henline, the interesting thing there is they put the visors on for the first time. He still does a lot wrong in his races, and he kind of wobbles and looks around and doesn't go terribly straight when he's trying to close off and wheel off those really fast splits at the end. I think he worked with them on Tuesday, and the quote from Tommy Berry was he went as straight as an arrow.
Okay.
So that is good news for him.
And being smothered might be helpful for a horse like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard to say, and you need the gaps to open, but who better than Tommy if you're going to be sort of ridden with cover and hoping for those late runs.
After the Ming Dynasty, he got off, and you know when they do the beaten jock, so he ran 6th that day to Lady Shenandoah, who had gone to be a Group 1 winner. He got off, and when they're doing the beaten jocks in the jockey's room at Rosehill, and he just goes, "I love this horse. I can't wait to get back on." That was his quote.
Well, that says a lot. And these Spring Champion horses, the jockeys, they're all in love with them. I know Josh is just ecstatic
Head
to
over
get back
heels.
on. Yeah, and I think I mentioned on the show earlier on this week that seeing him at the midweeks, and his quote was two more. Because I said, really good win. He goes, yeah, 2 more. So he's obviously thinking Saturday and then maybe a venture down south. But either way, we're in for one hell of a race.
He's a man full of confidence at the moment after a double on Saturday as well, stakes double on Everest Day. That's got to give you a little bit of a pep in your step.
He's been riding well for years. It's just the opportunities aren't there. And unfortunately, we've got some really good jockeys that can't ride at, say, 54.5 or below. And he kind of falls into that calibre. And if you've only got 2 horses at that weight, in Sydney, James and Nash seem to be taking those, and a few of them are left by the wayside. But You do not lose anything by having Josh Parr on your horse.
All right. The other big races at Randwick are the Craven Plate over the 1800, Wait for Age, Group 3. Faulkner Park. This is the big question for Saturday. Can he bounce back from his really flat performance in the Underwood down in Melbourne a few weeks ago? So he was a one-time Caulfield Cup favourite. He didn't really enjoy Melbourne, maybe not that way of going, whether he was on his right leg or he just didn't settle into stable life down there. I love that Annabelle and Rob they pulled the pin almost immediately on it, went, nah, we can't keep him down there. Obviously, he's just not enjoying himself. He's not a happy horse. Let's bring him back up to Sydney. And he goes around in the Craven Plate with an eye to the big dance.
Yeah. It's a big change.
It is a big change in programming.
So assuming all hasn't gone to plan with him, bear in mind this is the trainer that had Zaki as a favourite for multiple Group 1s and decided just to tip him out because she didn't feel as though he was himself. Like, she will prioritise the horse and whether they're going well and their fitness and their safety and their well-being, she'll prioritise that and will happily not race in huge races if she suspects anything's underwood. She's pushed on with the prep, just with a different plan. That says to me there's nothing major. It's just he's not going as well as he should have down there. Change of scenery. Clearly his mates in the stable up here called and said, mate, 25 degrees. August, September. What are you
bloody glorious.
What are you doing? He's down there, it rain in his mane, and he's gone, F this, I'm out.
Yep.
So, yeah, huge player in both of those races. It's a big drop down, but there's time for Faulkner Park, and I hope we see him back. He was probably Caulfield Cup favourite by default. Nothing really had shot the lights out, and bearing in mind, what was he in? An Albury Gold Cup and then a Wagga Gold Cup. This is probably a more suitable assignment.
Yeah, maybe it is. We'll see. I hope to see him bounce back, but you're right. It's fascinating that they've decided to push on. Stays at the 18. So you can see the reasoning behind the madness, so to speak. So Underwood 1800, Craven Plate 1800, and then drop back to the 1600, which is fine. There'll be a lot of fitness there, at least on his side. So that makes sense. The other race at the end of the day, or the two to close out, or two legs of the quaddie, the Invitation and the Five Diamonds Prelude. Let's start with the Five Diamonds, though, because there would be a beautiful story in this with Territory Express.
Yeah, so we know Paul well, albeit he hasn't probably been well enough to express himself of late. He's had his partner speaking for him in several interviews, and this is the guy who had a heart attack and multiple strokes and looked as though, he was on his last legs. And this horse and what Territory Express has been able to do, it hasn't saved his life, but it's certainly given him ridiculous motivation, ridiculous joy in a very difficult time of his life. And you know what? Sometimes people just need a reason to be getting up, getting those feet one foot in front of the other, and this horse has provided him that. It'd be almost the story of the day. And he's done a fantastic job with this horse. I'll put my hand up, and I think nearly everyone would say this horse has exceeded expectation by 10.
Yeah.
And he's in this race with a great chance once again. How did you sort of read
There's
the
a
race?
lot of speed. That's how I saw it initially. I was like, okay, a more victorious, I know a star, Punch Lane, Felix Majestic.
Yeah.
There's a lot of speed, and that plays into the
Yes.
hands of Territory Express.
It does. Did you interview him?
I did after the country championships final, and gosh, it was an emotional
Provincial Midway.
championship. Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, it was very emotional. He could barely get the words out, and understandably so. It was a great thrill.
Yeah. And I haven't been through anything like he has. It would be, to have a moment like that, it would be such a point of reflection. And you're being interviewed a minute
I know.
after it
We
all
don't
plays
leave
out.
things too long.
No. And, it makes for great TV, but you do leave people, it's a real warts and all moment in their life. I thought some of what I heard from him was fantastic. He really expressed himself well, albeit monosyllabic at times, and you could just see how much it meant. So I hope we see that again on Saturday.
The Invitation.
Yeah.
What a interesting concept it has been over the last couple of years. So 1,400 metres, fillies and mares. It's now a Group 2. And I tell you what, I love this field. I love this field of mares going around.
Cracking field. Conceptually, probably the weirdest
Yes.
new concept. Everyone talks about the Everest and the Kosciuszko. This is the weirdest concept of all of them, but it works.
Yeah.
So hats off. $2 million in prize money and a field assembled, a field of 12, invited by a panel. So in terms of, this is the most arbitrary way to formulate a race. It is essentially an Everest, but only Racing New South Wales get to decide who's in it. They own every slot.
Yeah.
And they say, you can have a slot and you can have a slot,
Yeah.
and you get sent an email or an envelope,
I
whatever way
don't
you want to
reckon
look
it's
at
an
it.
envelope. It might even just be a text.
You are married to a South Australian, aren't you? Envelope. I abandoned that a couple of years back. I need to get back to saying envelope. Anyway, so field of 12, invited by a panel convened by Racing New South Wales, and I believe Navesh plays a big role in that. I talked to him briefly about it the other day. I asked him when the envelopes were heading out, and he said they were sent and they were locking in a good field, and that's exactly what they've done. So it's for fillies and mares from Australia and New Zealand, and what a story Karen McAvoy has been in
Oh my
this
God.
race.
This is his race.
How does he keep doing it? He did it in the Everest,
He won 3.
and now he's doing it here.
So he's looking for his 4th or 5th straight, isn't it?
Yeah, fourth straight.
Fourth straight.
So he was ISPAR 2021, Promise of Success 2022, Espiona 2023.
And then Arctic Glamour this year.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like this is his race. So Arctic Glamour, she's always been one of mine. I loved her first up in the missile when she ran a very close second behind Schwartz. She was good in the Epsom as well. I don't think people expected her to run 5th in a hot Group 1, so she drops down in grade. 16 to the 14 probably suits her as well. I don't discount her chances in this race. Like seems to be plugging along nicely. There is a horse though that I have big eyes for, and that is Alencia.
Yeah.
And the comments from Chris Waller after she won the Nivison a few weeks back, saying she's basically a Group 1 winner in waiting.
Yeah, she travelled up so sweetly, didn't she? That race was over so far before they pushed the button.
Yeah. Magic Time's another one. She's a Group 1 winner over the 1400. Belclair, I mean, they're taking the blinkers off her this time because she's first start this preparation, the saddle slipped and she ran on fear apparently for the first half of the race.
Yeah.
And then she was still keen in the Alan Brown as well. So she's got to be given a chance. And then Zoo Gotcha, she's a 3-time Group 1 winner. I don't know exactly what went wrong last start. Was it Waller second up syndrome? Tongue tie first time. Maybe she choked out.
Yeah. And she's the one that's drawn perfectly to get a lovely run in the race. I've had a rethink, actually. It's the second most random concept because the public vote
All-Star Mile.
that's still got to be top of the tree. But the thing is, that just shows you why you need to sit back and give these races a chance. Because on paper, you would say this is up there with the most ridiculous concepts you've heard, and it just absolutely works. Listen to the names you've just thrown out there.
Helps there's $2 million up for grabs.
It does. It does.
What do you like?
Good race.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.